And Casey, like that conversation was so pivotal. You need to go find a great company for you and your guys, or you need to go build.
I'm just curious what you would want to tell someone that doesn't have God as a focal point.
In fact, I deleted social media on my phone, Game Pigeon, all of that stuff. And then I started training every day, 30 minutes, reading the manual, watching videos, and then I'd role play with the top guy on my team. And then I just started to like find ways to have joy throughout the day. Like my parents were very hardworking, very driven, and I feel like their influence really inspired me. Everything that I learn at church and spiritually is completely aligned with everything I'm learning from all of my mentors. Go freaking maximize it. Go maximize your life. Go become all that you can. I think the biggest thing that I want to leave is just like, I hope that I made a positive influence in everyone's life that I touched.
Welcome back to the Life Legacy Podcast. Today I'm very excited because, like another podcast, we have a phenomenal guest on. And in our first interaction, I was really impressed with how amazing you are in the growth and progression and how intentional you are with how you use your time and what you're building. So today I want to welcome Gage Heward to the podcast, and just a little bit of bio on him. He grew up in Linden. He was a millionaire by 22. And if that doesn't blow your mind, then you're doing amazing in life or something. But that is awesome. He currently owns 23 doors in real estate. He's the host of the Proximity is Power podcast. He has invested over 100,000 into his personal development this year, right? And has read over 650 books since high school, which was in 2017. And he's the owner of Mamba Marketing, and they're at 3 million in revenue in 2024. And they're going to be at like 100 million by the end of this year. And we decided to go to lunch. We have these podcasts, and we love and seem to look up to a lot of the same people. But Gage, I'm excited for this convo and honored that you're here.
Dude, thanks for having me. Honestly, a big fan of you, the show, everything you're doing. So stoked for today.
Well, to help our audience best understand who you are, what really drives you? What do you care about?
Yeah, great question. I'd say, like, for me, the purpose of my life is to be all that I can be, close the gap from where I am and my potential, and honestly, like, close that gap, and then while I'm closing the gap, inspire as many people as I can to do the same.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's always so hard to be kind of content where you are, at the same time pushing for greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I always look back and think, wow, like I'm happy where things are going. But in the moment, it is so hard to be kind of proud of where you're at.
Yeah.
Has that seemed to be something?
Sure. Dude, every other day, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm not moving the needle at all. And then other days I feel like I can accomplish, like, take over the world,
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, just staying grounded and just trusting the process of things and just making sure you're putting in those small daily things. And, I really like weekly planning too, just making sure I have big rocks in each of the categories of my life. So as long as I'm getting those done, I know slowly but surely good things will happen.
Yeah. So with those big rocks in the different categories, what are the main categories that you focus on? Because people might just think like there's so many different aspects of life that I need to move the rocks in 30 different things.
Yeah.
And then it's overwhelming. It's like, I can't plan for 5 hours every week.
Yeah.
What have you seen to be, a functional way that you can really make an impact in all the categories that matter, and what are they?
Yeah, great question. I'd say number one is health. And health is two parts, like my mind and then my body. Like I make sure that I have a plan for each of those areas. And then second, I'd say wealth and finance. So wealth to me is personal finance and then also like business. And then third, like love and relationships, family, especially friends, coworkers, that category. And then faith is another category. I'm always striving to grow my faith and develop that way more. And then the last one is happiness and fun. I feel like so many times in life, people, put that off or don't have a plan to be happy. And so I always make sure I have things that I'm looking forward to, excited about in that aspect.
Yeah, I'm just curious, do you have like any metrics around happiness and fun?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm always trying to plan things like that I've never done before. Whether that's different countries I'm visiting or different people I'm connecting with. Ty Lopez is a mentor of mine, and he talks about the 4 pillars to the good life. He says health, wealth, love, and then the last one's happiness. But basically, he says start your day with health. Every day, have a good solid morning routine. Feed your body, feed your mind, exercise, move your body. Second part of the day is wealth. The majority of people's time is going to be spent on their work, building their finances, their passion, their mission in life. And that's going to be the majority of the time. You should always be making sure you're making progress and learning how to do what you're doing better, right? And then the last one's love. At the end of the day, you should be spending time with people you love, whether that's family, friends, connecting, building relationships. And what I've found is if you do those first 3, you'll be happy. Like I feel like as I've been striving to grow in the other areas of my life, and I add faith in there too. Like I feel like every year of my life I've just gotten happier and happier. And I feel like it's because like my main definition of a happiness is progress and growth. And I feel like I've been growing in a lot of areas. So I've just been more happy than ever.
Yeah.
So
very quick, it's easy to see that you are this 26-year-old living in like a 50-year-old body of wisdom, and you got your things just loaded and ready to go.
Yeah.
I want to talk to, some of the younger generations as well as the parents of younger generations. Like what do you have instilled in you that put you on this path of progression? Like where did this hunger come from? And so let's start by painting a picture of your childhood and how did Gage develop?
Yeah. So I grew up in Linden, Utah, born and raised. Growing up, I had phenomenal parents. Like my dad was from Arizona. He worked on a farm growing up. And then my mom, Idaho, and then a little bit in Hawaii. Both of my grandparents, both sides were teachers actually. And both of them had really farm backgrounds, hardworking, stuff like that. And so my parents were very hardworking, very driven, and I feel like their influence really inspired me. Like growing up, my parents' like favorite thing to say was free time's the devil's time. And so they always had us working hard, like making up chores, making sure that we were getting good grades, making sure that we were participating in all the service projects. I had to get my Eagle Scout Award at 14. Like I had to get my Eagle before I got a cell phone. So that really motivated me to get that quickly. Like my parents were really, a big part of who I've become. And my dad was very hardworking. Like I don't remember a single day growing up that he missed work. Like he owned a financial business, and like I don't remember him ever once taking a sick day. Like every morning he was out of the house by like 9 and he'd be back by 5, 6. and he could choose his own schedule too. So like he never missed any sporting events, coached our little league teams, like very, very lucky. And my dad was successful. My parents like had like more money than most families in our community, but they also, like, one of my dad's favorite thing to tell us was, I would never deprive you of the experience of getting it yourself. So they didn't give us anything. And
Love that.
like, it was the best blessing. I feel like so many people, like, once they become parents, want to give their child or their children everything they didn't have. But I think you should just help them be more than you were, you know? And so, like, growing up, I didn't like how my parents did things. I didn't like the standards that they held for us kids. And I hated that even though they had money, we didn't see any of it, it felt like. Like, I had my own room all the time, but we had to pay for, like, our sporting events, sporting activities, literally our clothes. If we wanted, like, nice clothes for school, we had to go earn it through jobs. I mowed lawns, did house chores, worked as a lifeguard, just did whatever I could to have some extra money to, like, be decently cool at school with, like, decent clothes, if that makes sense. So, because I had a lot of friends that were also well off, but were given everything. Like, we'd be comparing Christmas presents, and I'm getting, like, I had a max budget of $100 for Christmas, or I think it was 125 or 150, but that was the max, and I could choose how I allocated that for Christmas and birthdays. But then my friends would tell me they got a season pass to Sundance, they got new skis, the new Madden game, the new 2K game, the new PS4, Battlefront, like, all this stuff. And I'm like, I could have 1/6 of my ski pass paid for, and then I had to come up with the difference, and that was my entire Christmas. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I just feel like even being around, like, so I went to Timpanogos High School, and there's 3 high schools in Orem: Timpanogos, Mountain View, and Orem High. And of the 3, like, Timpanogos is kind of known as, like, the rich kid school, if you will. And I was best friends with, like, some of the coolest families in Utah. And, like, my parents had money, but we didn't see it. And I just, like, became friends with this kid whose parents owned a cleaning company that cleaned all the big chains in all the eastern states, like CVS stores, Walgreens, Targets, like, big operation. And they were so wealthy, like, insanely wealthy, like, massive house, pool, in-home gym, tennis court, skate park, like, 5-car garage, like, crazy house. They had a guest house in Boston, like, cool lifestyle. They had country club, all of that stuff. And I feel like it just opened my eyes to what's possible in the world. Like, what can happen if you truly put your mind to something and build something that adds a lot of value in the marketplace. And it was cool to, like, glimpse that, but also, like, to look at who the family was and the type of people they were. Like, they were the most giving, charitable people I'd ever seen. Like, they'd invite us to go to Sun Valley, Idaho for a week-long trip, everything paid for. Deer Valley as well in Park City, ski out cabin, paid for all our day passes. Like, the most charitable family. And then they were always, like, taking us to fundraiser dinners and just paying for everything. Like, almost every day for lunch, we'd go to Riverside Country Club to eat lunch. Like,
It's crazy.
just the coolest, like, family. Like, their basement would be packed with toys every in November and December just to give to families.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's really what turned the corner for me, through high school. Like, I felt like I was ambitious, but once I saw, like, what could be possible, what I could build to go then, help the community. I remember I was raising money for the football program. Like, we had to sell these discount cards. Everyone kind of has to do that. They play high school sports in Utah, but we could sell the card And then there were also some additional more expensive things like the banners around the football stadium. And I remember I went to that house, the family, and I was like, hey, like, we're selling these things to raise money for the school. And they're like, what's the most expensive thing? Here's the check. It was like thousands of dollars that they just willingly gave. So it just like totally changed my perspective on a lot of things, I'd say.
And so that sounds like now that's one of your big things that you strive for is where you can allocate your funds to creating that experience for others as well as showing what's possible. Does that sound accurate?
Absolutely. And it's funny because like I always knew I'd be like somewhat successful. I'm like, my dad makes 6 figures, I know I can too, type thing.
Yeah.
But like, so that kind of got me on the path of like, oh, I know I want to do whatever it takes to like be successful, right?
Yep.
But my dad, I was about to graduate high school. I just finished up my senior season of football, and he took me to lunch. And I remember going to lunch with him, and he's like, "Okay, your senior season of football is over. You're about to graduate in a few months. Like, what's your plan?" And I'm like, I don't know, like, like go to college, maybe go on a mission. Like, I don't really know. And it's so funny because when you're growing up, like you never think the day's going to happen that you graduate. Like you think this is life forever. It just seems, forever. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, and I'm like, what I do know though is I want to be successful, like in life. I want to be, and to me that was like mostly financial at the time. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what, like the number one thing that's made me the most successful in life are the people I've met and the books I've read. And he's like, remember that stack of books I gave you for Christmas last year that you haven't touched? and I knew exactly where they were. They were under my bed, and it was just a bunch of old, beat up, used books even. And they were like books like As a Man Thinketh, The Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like all the OG great books. And he's like, I'm like, yeah, I remember those books. He's like, those books have changed my life more than almost anything else. And you haven't touched them. And I'm like, you're right. And I wasn't a reader, like at all. Like I had read the Percy Jackson series and the Harry Potter series, like, but everything else, like any mandatory reading for school, I just BS'd it, right? Spark Notes. And
internet's full with the information.
Right. And now with ChatGPT, I can't even imagine. But so he's like, I'll tell you what, I'll pay you $10 for every book you read if you just come back and talk to me about it, and I'll just ask you a couple questions to make sure you've read it. And $10 was not a lot, even for me in high school. But I'm just like, I just saw the look in my dad's eyes, like he really like meant what he was saying. Like these books really did change who he was and how he saw the world. And I took him up on it. And so I started reading all these books in high school. And dude, I just remember reading these books and like just being mind blown with the info in these books. Like it totally started to change my perspective on myself, the world, life, the purpose of life. And it was transformational. And I started reading like these books before I was about to graduate, and I started reading Think and Grow Rich, and it talks about in there that you should make a financial, you should write on a 3x5 card like a financial goal, like how much you want to make, by when, and what you're willing to do to get the money. And so I wrote down on this card, I want to have $30,000 by December of the next year. And it was December of 2016. I was about to graduate in May of 2017. So I said, by December 2017, I want $30,000 in my account. Like I want to earn 30K by the time a year from now. And keep in mind, like I had never made more than like $2,000 in a summer. Like I never had a job while I was in school. So it was literally just working in the summers, mowing lawns.
Yeah,
and
you're thinking big in that moment.
Dude, it was a 10x impossible goal. I'm like, it would be insane to earn 30K like this year, especially with like being in high school most of that year. So I set this goal. I wrote it down, and then it said to write it down every day and to read it out loud. So I wrote it down every day, and then I'd go in my closet and I'm like, I earned $30,000 by December of 2017. Okay. And I had no idea how it was going to happen, what was going to happen from it. And 3 weeks go by, nothing happens. I'm like, this is BS.
Like, where's my 30 grand?
Where's my 30 grand? I have no new opportunities. Like, don't have any ideas of how I'm going to make money. But anyway, what happened was we were trying to hang out with my buddy, and he was always working. And then my friend one time commented, dude, if I was making as much as him, I'd be wanting to work too. And this friend had graduated the year before us. And so I called him the next time, like, dude, what are you doing for work? And he's like, I'm selling Dish and DirecTV on the phones at this call center. My dad actually owns it, and I'm making pretty good money. And because you get paid commission, and every time you switch somebody over to DirecTV, you get paid. So I'm like, dude, give me a job. Like, I'll do anything. He's like, usually you don't hire kids in high school. I'm like, dude, I'm different. Like, I'll come, I'll make it happen. Gets me an interview. I get the job. And within like the first month or two, I become the top salesperson at this call center. And I was just like, it was awesome. Like, I was making more money than I'd ever seen. I'd come in a couple days after school. Couple hours every day after school, and make like a couple $100. And I was doing the math. I'm like, wow, if I just kept this up for a full year, I could hit my goal. And anyway, like after a month goes by, and I'm still reading these books, and I'm reading like The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. So I'm like I'm studying those stuff, sales. And the owner of the company comes to me. He's like, Gage, you should go out to Kansas City this summer and sell satellite door to door, because you can make 2 times more the commission, because I don't have to buy your leads, and I can pay you to train and lead a team, and you can get paid overrides when they get a sell. And I'm like, that'd be cool. I'm like, how much do you think I can make? He's like, $20,000 to $30,000. And I'm like, what? Like in a summer I can make that much money? And so anyway, long story short, I decide I'm going to go do that job. My cousin hears about it. He had worked with a pest control company called Aptive the year before, and he basically convinced me to sell pest control instead of do the satellite. He's like, satellite's a dying industry. Pest control is where it's at. I'm like, I don't want to sell bug spray. That sounds like...
Bugs are always going to be around.
Yeah, exactly. And so I find myself graduating high school, and all my friends are going on missions, senior trips, and I fly out to Columbus, Ohio to go sell pest control door to door.
Yeah.
So sorry, that was a long story to your question, but
no, it's great. I want to hit on a couple things.
yeah.
I love the intentionality of your father to sit you down and just really understand where you're at and how he can help. And he's like, hey, I've given you these tools and they're just getting rusty under your bed.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I remember very similar in high school. I never read any of the books that I was asked to read. And so my grandpa, I talked at his funeral, and everyone was going around and saying like the meaningful things of Grandpa LJ. And Grandpa LJ, for me, he gave me my first book that I've ever read on my own by my own choice. And it was because I honored and I loved him so much. And I knew he had built amazing things in life. And he's just like, this book is going to change your life. And so he gives me How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I had a trip to Dominican Republic coming up, and I'm like, I'm going to read the book, at least get started on it on this trip. I'm just going to bring a book on a vacation, which sounded so weird to me and so dumb. And I had a layover where I was waiting for one of my brothers in the airport for a long time. And so I just opened it up and I started reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I just remember it was so earth shattering, where One, the name of that book is kind of off-putting. It just sounds so manipulative.
Yeah, it's so
But
transactional,
yeah,
right?
but in reality, that book taught me if you just do tiny tweaks, you can show your love to people so much better, and you can learn how to help people, love their life and where you're adding a lot of value to them.
Yeah,
And
and they're really simple concepts, like use the person's name,
yeah.
smile, right? Like say Jackson,
Yeah.
you know?
No, definitely. And those are the tiny tweaks that, make people stand out and make people feel seen. But I just wanted to bring that up because that had my domino effect where my family rolls their eyes at me a little bit because I love to read. I love learning all the business and leadership and
Yeah.
self-development things. And I think along the journey of those types of experiences in life, when you're working on yourself, people will kind of ask why if it's a little different than what other people are doing. I'm just curious if you've noticed that, if you've had some people roll their eyes while, you said you've invested $100,000, this year or last year to your self-development.
Yeah. Dude, I think that one of the secrets in life, the biggest secret in life is proximity is power. Like you only change your life if you change what you put into your head, who you associate with. Like that quote that my dad told me at that lunch of like, the thing that's made me the most successful are the books I've read, the people you meet. Like you will be the same person you are today as you are 5 years from now, besides the people you meet and the books you read, like truly. And so like, I remember that day, I just made it a goal that I was going to read. I heard a quote that said the average CEO reads 52 books a year. I'm like, I'm going to freaking double that. I'm going to read 104. And that year I read 150. And I also made it a goal to try to take someone that I looked up to in any area of life to lunch once a week. So that was like the other thing that I started doing. And those conversations at those lunches, transformational. The books I was reading, transformational. And then I started listening to podcasts and on YouTube. Like we have access to the best minds in the world. And most people don't value things that are given to us for free. And so most people don't spend the time to watch them, and it's free and it's out there. But I'm totally at the belief like the quickest way to get what you want in life is go find someone that's done it and go interview them, go listen to their podcast, go read their book to try to get to that place faster.
You need to bridge a gap, and that gap is experience and the knowledge of doing something for 20 plus years.
Yeah, because so many people get stuck on the how. Like if you want to make $100,000 in a summer selling, let's say, and you've never sold before, and so you're here, you've never sold anything in your life, and you want to get here. Let's say this is a crazy goal for you. The best way to go do that, like so many people get stuck on the how, but it's like go find the who that's done it at a high level that could help you go figure out the how. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So, yeah.
Definitely. I also think if you understand the how of whatever you're trying to achieve for your why, that probably means your why isn't big enough. You need to grow. And when the why is so big, the how isn't going to be exactly clear. And that's when I know that I'm pushing for my greatness, is when there's a lot of steps along the way that I really don't understand. But standing on the shoulders of giants is so crucial in all of this. And so I'm curious, with the mentors and the people you've taken to lunch, who was someone that, was pivotal for who you are?
Casey Baugh. So yeah,
wasn't even a hesitation.
Dude. He changed my life. Top 3 most transformational people. Because here's what happened. I went out and sold my first summer. And out of all my friends from high school, the only person that I knew that also went out right out of high school was my friend Zach. And Zach did a summer with Vivint, Smart Home, and I had done a summer with Active. So at the end of that summer, I was trying to recruit Zach to come with me to Active, and he was trying to recruit me to Vivint. And he calls me up. He's like, dude, come meet with my regional manager, just come to his house where it's like a little fire pit talk. And I'm like, deal. Like, I'll come here, your guy out if you come here, mine, right? So I pull up, he sends me the address, and I drive my little, I think I had a little yellow car from high school, over to this neighborhood, and it was the most insane neighborhood, like gated community, like massive house. They had a fire pit in the front and the back, pool, beautiful house, crazy cars in the driveway. And it was a young dude. I was picturing like, 40, 50, 60-year-old dude. But no, he's like young, vibrant, energized. And this was Casey Baugh. And I was just like, I think what happened in that moment is like I saw the lifestyle from high school, and then I saw Casey living the lifestyle through door to door. And it just like opened my eyes to like the possibility in it. But like the reason Casey was so transformational was, dude, the guy didn't even try to recruit me to Vivint. He just poured into me. Like, he got me to believe in myself more than I believed in me. He got me to believe in myself more than the leaders that I had at the company I was at. Like, he told me, Gage, good job making, $30K your first summer. What's your goal this next year? And I'm like, I don't know, 50, 60K probably. He's like, no, Gage, you need to make 100K your second summer. Like, I did it. I know you could do it. And I'm just like, what? Like, I busted my butt to go make 30. I would have to like triple what I did in my first summer to go make 100. And he's like, Gage, you can do it. And he gave me a book. And the first book he gave me was As a Man Thinketh. And I had already read it. It was one of the books my dad gave me. But Casey literally said, I'll pay you $100 if you read this book, come back and give me a book report about it. And I think in that moment, like, I took reading seriously. At the time I was reading like a book a month. But when Casey and my dad both tell me that books have changed their life more than anything else, and that there's no such thing as a good investor, there's no good thing. There's no such thing as a good investment, only good investors. And if you don't know what to invest in, you should invest in yourself, because the best investment is in yourself. Like, there's no better asset in life than you and your own mind. And so like the more you can pay to invest in yourself than to learn to do what you're doing at a higher level, the faster you'll get to where you want in life. So he taught me to invest in myself. He taught me the importance of reading books, and again, the power of proximity. And I just took what my dad gave me and Casey gave me, and I just like ended up reading 150 books that year. And like Casey was just such a cool dude, because like he really cared about me. Like, it wasn't anything like
transactional.
Yeah,
This was just
he just
depth.
cared. Like he just looked me in the eye and is like, this will change your life more than anything else. And this opportunity in door to door is unlike anything else. Go freaking maximize it. Go maximize your life. Go become all that you can to go serve at the highest level. And so it just, dude, I love it. So
Super awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Casey, and he's been a big part of my progression.
Yeah. And what's crazy too, dude, is like I ended up, I don't know why I didn't go to Vivint. Like, it just never felt right in my gut.
Yeah.
But like I knew he was like a more powerful and inspirational leader than I'd ever seen before. But even a year later, I still go with a different company, the company I was at. And a year later, he invites me to go to Tony Robbins with him and all the Vivint boys. And like, I was the only kid that didn't work for Vivint that he invited to go to that. He's like, Gage, because I had done a couple book reports with him and we were chatting. He's like, you should come to Tony Robbins. And I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, it's this seminar for 5-6 days. on business mastery. Like, I think it will totally help you grow your door-to-door business. And I'm like, well, how much is it? And he's like, it's $10,000. And I'm just thinking to myself, what could I possibly learn in a week that's worth $10,000, right? Like UVU costs like 20 grand for 4 years. So I'm like, that's like 2 years of college, right?
Half
In
of
a week,
tuition.
right? And so I'm like, dude, that sounds insane. Like, that's more than I owe in tithing this year. I don't think I could go. He's like, you think it will cost you 10 grand? I'm like, yeah, didn't you just tell me that was the price? He's like, I'm like, yeah. And he's like, no, it will cost you millions if you don't go. And so I sent it, went to Tony Robbins Business Mastery, and he was the one that introduced me to the Tony Robbins world, and worth every penny that I put in. So
Yeah, we both of us we really look up to Tony Robbins.
yeah.
What's been the biggest outcome of your learning that Tony Robbins has helped you with?
Yeah.
And if you could help people understand one thing that he teaches, what do you think that would be?
That's a great question. You know, there's so many mentors out there that you could learn from, right? And I think why I connect with guys like Casey, guys like Tony Robbins more than others is like Tony Robbins, for example, he's mastered every area of life at the highest level, in my opinion, and has gotten results for himself and for others for not just years or months, but decade after decade. Like, he's been in this thing 45 years. Like, I was literally listening to a podcast like yesterday with Lewis Howes on the School of Greatness with Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, you know, the Canadian guy. And I've watched Shark Tank a lot, and I've listened to a couple interviews off the scenes from Robert, and Robert was talking to Lewis about this plateau in his career in like the 90s, and he went to a Tony Robbins event, and it totally changed his mindset on his life and his business, and he just had all this success because of that one seminar. And so I'm like, dude, every single mentor you look up to probably has been touched by Tony Robbins. Like, I just think Tony Robbins is such a cool person to learn from, because his whole life philosophy is learning from the best people on the planet in every area of life, and then teaching you in a 5-day seminar everything he learned on that subject. So like, I've learned how to like have better relationships, how to prioritize different things in my life, how to get clear on a vision for my life, how to like investment strategies, different asset allocation, like how to maximize my business. He's inspired me to be a giver and more of a giver. Like, I don't know, one thing specifically that Tony has taught me. I think the biggest thing I've learned from Tony is the secret to living is giving. And life isn't about me, it's about we. I think so many times, especially in the door-to-door space, like these young guys, including me, we're just so money hungry, so successful, do anything to get significance, to be on the top leaderboard, to get all the money, the glory, the cars, like the life. But like, none of that matters if you don't bring people with you, you know?
Definitely.
And I felt like I was a very selfish person for a lot of years. And I feel like Tony kind of opened up my heart to be like, I felt like I was at a Date with Destiny seminar in December of 2023. And I felt like a mix between the Grinch and Scrooge. After this meditation of like, dude, just my heart opened up. Like, my life isn't my life, it's God's life. My money's not my money, it's God's money. And I'm here to love and serve and give. And it just like transformed me, I feel like. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm aware of who I am, and I know like what I need to do to make that more, like I act in that way more than who I used to be.
I mean, that's so transformational in anyone's journey.
Yeah.
And whatever instruments it is to get someone closer to God and your true purpose of who you are is so sacred and beautiful. And I'm curious, in your world, what role has God played in who you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Dude, I feel like I I kind of had an interesting history with God and spirituality and the church. And I'll talk about it. Like my parents very strong in the church, and held us all to very high standards in the church. I felt like they shoved the church down our throats growing up
Mm.
almost, you know? And I think there's a way to do that lovingly, and then the way that maybe it shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just felt like I didn't love the way I grew up in the church. And so after high school, I kind of like left faith and left the church and left God. And that's when I went through like I'd call it like selfish phase. Didn't really have God, didn't really have guidance in my life. But I always knew, like, deep down that the church was true and that God is real and that Jesus is the Christ. And I always knew I wanted to raise my family in the church. Like,
Mm.
there's not, like, I truly think it's the true church just because it's the highest standard church on the planet. And I think like if God's church was on earth, it'd have the highest standards. Like I think that in itself is huge. But what I'd say is like the more I read the scriptures and the more I listen to general conference and the more I listen to the Spirit, everything that I learn at church and spiritually is completely aligned with everything I'm learning from all of my mentors, Tony Robbins. Like they're completely aligned.
Mm.
And so it's really interesting because like the two biggest commandments in our church is to love God, and to love God is become like God, like become the best version of yourself, close the gap from who you are and who you could be in all areas of life, and then serve his children. Help as many people do the same thing. And so the last 2 years, like 3 years ago, I met my wife and she was a return missionary going to BYU. And I feel like her influence on me totally got me back. And I started growing my testimony. I started doing the things that I needed to do and getting myself and my heart right. And yeah, I feel more spiritually connected every day now.
So if there's someone out there that's kind of on the spiritual journey of understanding, if God is real,
Mm-hmm.
or like what role God plays in their life, what would you want to say to that person? Because it sounds like you had a time
Mm-hmm.
where God wasn't like anywhere near a focal point,
Mm-hmm.
which I've had similar experiences as well.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what you would want to tell someone that doesn't have God as a focal point.
Yeah, I think the first thing is like make time for him daily. Like pray. And like no one needs to watch. Like don't do it because you know you should do it. Like do it to just build a relationship and talk to him. Because I feel like as you start to do that, your relationship with him will grow and you'll start to know, like you'll start to have his guidance and you'll see his hand in your life.
I like that. I I would probably add, um, take a look internally and just rate your life on a scale 1 to 10. How happy am I? And that's always a good starting point of like any changes internalizing what's going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to do that, and I think anything that I would say to someone is, if you want real life improvement in your joy and happiness and peace and overall fulfillment
Mm-hmm.
in who you are, knowing that God is real and that he loves you will shake you to your core, and there's going to be some things that will change in your life that will make you become a better person. Because yeah, it comes down to you will want to reach your own potential out of the love of God, but also you'll want to showcase that love and help others, as we've been asked that, we're all brothers and sisters and we just want to help everyone win.
Yeah.
And I think connecting that with business a little bit, like it's really cool for a founder to exit a company and make millions and billions of dollars, but if he cut everyone's necks along the way to get himself there, that's not going to feel very fulfilling. But if he brought a team of people that you guys all love each other, and you can create lifetime relationships in the work career as well, and bringing people up and helping them achieve their goals along the way, I think that is special. That is so special and fulfilling as a person.
Yeah.
Um,
Business is a spiritual game. Like I just remember when life was about me in business and like as a leader, and I did not, like, I put myself first, my income first, and like whatever my guys did was bonus, because I'm like, I can't control what they do, and it was about me, and like none of my guys stuck, right? But as soon as I changed it to like, how can I help my guys hit their goals, like define what their goals are and help them, like things got so much better. This job became fun, right? And I just felt like so much better about myself and like the impact I was having when I did that. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Like I think as a business, you kind of have a fiduciary responsibility and stewardship to help your people in the best way you can. Help them grow in every aspect. And like I've really enjoyed being a business owner because I kind of have control of that and how high of a quality and how much of an impact I can truly make. Like I just brought 20 of my buddies in November to New York to Tony Robbins. Like I brought them to a mentor, and after that week they're like, Gage, that was like the most transformational week of my life, and it's like really cool to be part of their growth, and it's fun.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Yeah, you got to bring everyone up. And especially when you've been given much in life, I feel like there's an obligation where you need to spread those gifts to help other people raise to their potential. With your journey, what has kind of been some of your refiner's fire? Like what have been some of the low points? Because when you start pushing for high altitudes of wealth and success, sometimes that means the volatility you're gonna hit below sometimes levels that other people don't experience.
Yeah. Two moments come to mind. Number one, my first summer selling. Dude, the hardest thing I've ever done was go through that first summer selling pest control. Like it sounds dumb. I mean, especially if you haven't done it. If you've done it, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But like when you try to go master any skill in life, you're going to suck at first. Like the 10,000 hours to master any skill is real. And I felt like going into that first summer, I'm like, I got this. I was a football captain. I mowed lawns. I worked hard, got my Eagle Scout. Like if my cousin can make 44K in a summer, I know I can make at least 20 or 30 grand. Like it'll be a walk through a park. But I get out there, dude, and I get my butt kicked. Like it's the craziest schedule I'd ever worked. It was hot. People were rude. All my friends were having fun in the summer, hanging out, going to mission farewells, and I was in Columbus having people freaking slam the door in my face. So I feel like that first summer was so hard, and I remember 3 weeks in, I was at a breaking point, and I was sitting on a curb, and I called my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I hate this job. I hate that you told me to come do this. Like, why am I out here? This sucks. I don't know how I'm going to even buy food next week, right? Like, I had $40 in my bank account. And my dad's like, well, if you come home, you're not staying here. He's like, you got to figure it out. Like, dude, I know you can do this. Go all in. Like, have fun with the job, simplify the pitch, and just make it happen. So I get off the phone and I'm like
real quick,
in tears.
What's going through your head as he's saying that?
I'm like, I'm homeless. Like, I didn't know, like, you get paid $50 up front per sell, but they take out rent. And so I didn't even have enough sales to like cover like the rent cost. And I'm like, I'm like in the hole right now. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, I feel like people act out of desperation or inspiration. And I just had my back against the wall. Like, I knew the only way forward was, like, the only way through it was forward. And like in Think and Grow Rich, it talks about burning the boats. And I feel like my dad kind of burned the boats of like that opportunity or that glimpse of going home and having a normal high school summer with my buddies, right? And none of my buddies wanted me to go out there anyway because they wanted me to hang out with them that summer. But anyway, after that call, I'm just like feeling defeated, feeling like there's no way I can figure this out. It seems so hard. Like, even though I was having success at the call center, the doors were different because it was in person. Body language mattered. Like not only did you have to worry about what you were saying, but how you were saying it, and then how confident you looked and all that stuff. And I thought like $450 or $500 for pest control service was outrageous price, that nobody would pay that, because that was like so much money to me in my high school mind, right? And then my cousin met with me and I'm like, I'm going home. He's like, dude, you need to do this job the right way or quit. He's like, you haven't been working hard. You haven't been training every day. You've had a bad attitude. Like, you need to go all in or go home. And I'm like, well, I don't have a home to go home to, so I guess I'm going to go all in. So I just committed right there. I'm like, I'm going to work the hours. From the time I get dropped off, I'm going to not take any breaks. In fact, I deleted social media on my phone, Game Pigeon, all of that stuff. And then I started training every day, 30 minutes, reading the manual, watching videos, and then I'd role play with the top guy on my team. And then I just started to like find ways to have joy throughout the day. Like, even if the person didn't buy from me, I was going to leave them in a better place than I found them. And dude, I just committed to that, and slowly but surely I started getting multiple sales a day, and then I started to outsell my cousin and ended up being like the best summer ever, because it just gave me the confidence that I could do hard things and push through when times got tough. Second story real quick. Fast forward 5 years. I had been at Aptive for 5 years, had led multiple teams, and kind of got into a position where like I felt like the company I was at kind of grew too big too fast. And the quality of the service that we were offering to customers went downhill as we scaled. And so basically, when you sell an account, the customer has to stick for a certain period for you to get paid commission on that deal. But more and more customers every year were canceling before the accounts would lock, so we weren't getting paid as high of a percentage on the deals we sold, basically. And so that sucked for me, but it also sucked for my guys, because they were thinking they were going to get this at the end of the summer, but they got this because of things outside of their control. And so, dude, I was at a crossroads. I had like 100 guys signed to me at Aptive. I had made more money than ever before, but it was less than I thought. And all my guys started switching companies because they didn't make what they thought they were going to make. And I felt like I paid them high commission and got them to sell well, but because they weren't getting paid on their accounts because of retention, it didn't matter. So they were switching to Vivint, Alarms, different pest companies, and I'm just like, I didn't even want to try to persuade them to stay with me because I didn't think it was the best place anymore. So it was a tough situation. And I remember that my wife, I was dating her at the time, and she's like, hey, I have 2 nephews coming home from missions. They want to come sell with you. Like, I'm like, well, don't have them come here. Like, I didn't believe it was the best place anymore. And so I literally call Casey Baugh and we go to lunch like the next day. Such a kind guy, like literally cut time out of his day to meet with me. And he had left Vivint at the time. He bought me lunch and was just, told him that whole story. And I was thinking of leaving door to door and starting a cold plunge sauna business called The Dip. That was my idea. I'm leaving door to door. I'm going to start this thing. Luckily, I'd invested decently, so it wasn't like I had no money. And Casey, like, that conversation was so pivotal. He's like, I don't care if you start a side hustle. Don't quit door to door until your side hustle pays you more than door to door. You've already mastered the skill of selling, training, recruiting, and leading. I'm so sorry what's happened to you at the company you're at. Like at Vivint, I never had to worry about my guys getting paid. You need to go find a great company for you and your guys, or you need to go build one. And dude, that conversation was completely pivotal. And he was so right. And so I left Aptiv, didn't take any of my guys, and went and tried a couple companies. And then I realized I didn't like them, the way, like something about them. And then I just started my own. And that was like totally put me on a totally different path than I was going down. It would be so funny to see where I'd be right now if I hadn't gone to lunch with him and started the cold plunge business. So anyway,
I think there's some cool life lessons there. Like, realize when you're at a dead end
yeah.
that you need to not keep running into the dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also ask for help in a way to someone you really looked up to when there was uncertainty within yourself of what the next best move would be for your life.
Yeah.
And then he was able to drop knowledge that's obviously been a game changer for who you are and your life.
Well, it's like Think and Grow Rich. It talks about seek expert counsel before you quit anything. It's like the 3 feet from gold, right? Like the guy finds a cave with a bunch of gold, gets really happy, buys this equipment, starts mining the gold, and then all of a sudden the gold vein disappears. And so he sells all the equipment, he gets defeated, sells the equipment to a junk man, and then the junk man literally hires somebody that's an expert geologist, I guess, brings him to the cave, and the geologist says, hey, this happens all the time. There's like a fault line, and the gold should be 3 feet behind where the guy stopped digging. So he starts digging, and sure enough, finds the vein of gold again and mines millions of dollars out of the cave. So the lesson is seek expert counsel before you quit anything. And thank goodness I did, because that expert counsel from a guy that had done door to door at such a high level was like transformational.
Yeah, I love that. As we kind of wrap up here, 2 things I want to talk about. One, how has your wife changed your life? And then start thinking about, the legacy that you want to leave behind.
Yeah, dude, my wife's the coolest person I've ever met in my life. She's my best friend. She's changed me more than anyone else. And I know we've talked about big names on the podcast, Tony Robbins, Casey Baugh, but like, I feel like it's really funny because if you would have asked me in my 20s if I wanted to get married, I would have said, hell no. Like, I did not want to get married. And I just wanted to be a young bachelor. Didn't see myself even having like a family like at the time. And in Think and Grow Rich, it said like, you can't reach your potential in life without getting married. And that's really what changed my mind, as dumb as that sounds. But like, I decided, I'm like, oh, I actually should get married because I can't reach my potential. And like, that was my reason for wanting to get married. Sounds so dumb. But dude, it's so funny because I was dating a bunch of girls, and like it never felt right. It never sat right with me. And I feel like I got some friends told me, hey, when you know, marriage is the biggest decision, but it should be the easiest. And if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And so, dude, nothing was happening. And I met my wife actually in 7th grade, and I had a crush on her. And then at the end of that school year, she moved to Dallas. And me and my friends were all sad because she was one of the hottest girls in our school and she moved. I'm like, there's only so many of you, don't leave, right? And so it was so funny because I was dating this girl for 2 years and it never felt right. She really wanted to get married, didn't feel right. And I'm like, I guess if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, right? And while I'm dating this girl, her name keeps popping up in my head. And it's so funny because, yeah, after that relationship ended, I immediately, like, within a couple weeks or months, I asked her out. And it's crazy because literally the third date, I knew she was my wife. Like, immediately, like, I knew, like,
How?
dude, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Like we were at this dinner and she's a foodie, I'm a foodie. We were connecting. She was telling me about her family, her goals in life, and like she just had so much light in her eyes and like just the vibes were there. And I remember calling my mom after that day and just being like, I found my wife. And it took her longer to know that I was the one for her. But dude, she's the best thing ever. I think marriage is so cool because it like you'll never be more naked than when you're married. Like in all aspects, right? Like they see who you are at every level in every walk of life. And so it's really cool cuz like marriage is kind of a mirror. Like you see parts of yourself that you never saw before. And I feel like my wife's such a good example to me. And she's so fun. She's so positive. She believes in me more than I believe in myself. And she's just the, the best thing ever.
Dang. Yeah, man. I'm on the journey to get married, and it's cool to hear that. I like that, and I've learned myself just in dating that mirror concept is so real, and you don't learn the things that you need to learn until you're seeing that mirror from a different angle than you've ever seen. So I think that's really insightful. Last thing, what do you want for your legacy to truly be? Like what matters to you? Let's say all your loved ones are at your grave, and what do you want them to say about Gage?
It's a really good question. Um, I think the biggest thing that I want to leave is just like a I hope that I made a positive influence in everyone's life that I touched. I hope I touch as many lives as I can, and I hope that the interaction with me or the influence that I had on them helped them in some way. That's what I would hope. Um, like the worst thing would be like nobody's there, and the people that were there, majority of the interactions with me were negative. Like that, that would be the worst nightmare. Hopefully, I'm not on that track. But yeah, like
Definitely not.
I think it's really crazy. Like start with the end in mind, right? And so like I used to not think about this, but like life isn't about me, it's about we. Like we're here to give and to help others as much as we are for ourselves. Like, and keeping that forefront of the mind. Like when I was at that seminar, Date with Destiny, where I had that like Grinch Christmas Carol moment, like it totally changed my perspective on life. And that's when I decided to start the podcast. Like I've learned so much in these interviews and these books. Like I'd love to share my guests and like what I've learned to others. I started paying tithing at that time. Like like just things started moving in that direction of like contribution and like putting people first. And so I hope that I continue down that track, and I think hopefully at the end they'll say I was a force for good.
Yeah.
So
Well, just from all of our interactions, you definitely are a force for good. And I see the value that you add to people, and you're really good at it, and you're intentional with why you're doing it. And so I look up to you a lot in that. And yeah, with your podcast, I remember when we were talking, and I don't know how long ago I was on your podcast, but you were just taking notes. And I just love that you're a consistent learning like human that doesn't stop with their education. But I guess last thing I'm curious about is what's been one of the bigger takeaways from your podcast that you didn't expect?
That's a really good question. And dude, likewise, man, like you're such a stud and it's so cool. Like the business that you're in is so awesome. And I know like so many people are going to get so much value from it and like future generations because of what you're doing. And like big fan of the podcast too. Like, dude, you're a man on a mission. And that's why I like reached out to you to go to lunch because I'm like, dude, I want more people like you in my circle because I know we'll all help each other, you know, do bigger things faster. So
Appreciate that.
dude, I mean it. So yeah, dude, honestly, like the podcast has been fun because like I feel like the biggest thing that I've learned from the podcast, like each guest, I've learned something new, right? The podcast is a cool platform because you think you have a friend like that you know everything about them, and then you get on the podcast and you can ask them questions that you wouldn't normally ask them, right? And it's like a clear way, like go deep on their background and their story. I just think like don't judge a book by its cover. Like you can learn something from anybody. Like everyone's life in some areas are an example and some areas of their life are a warning. And so like be open-minded. Like be kind, be open-minded. And if you do that and you're curious, like be curious, you will learn so much more than if you're closed off, prideful, unkind.
Dude, I love that. I think that's a good way to wrap up is I think be intentional with your time. Focus on your personal education before, investing in things you don't understand. Like invest in yourself deeply. And I think you're a great testament of that. And then surround yourself with greatness. Proximity is power, right? And yeah, I also loved before you quit, go get some experts in whatever you're dealing with and make sure you're not leaving gold left behind. But you're super valuable as a human. Every human is valuable, but I think there's givers and there's takers, and you're definitely a giver that I'm just excited to see where we all end up in the next 5-10 years, and we'll stay connected through it all. But anyone at home, just know that we love you, and whatever you need that we can help with, we want to, and we're here to make you guys feel loved and known that really we believe and know that you can reach your potential if you're willing to sacrifice and dream big and execute on plans. And honestly, I think that's it. That's a great podcast right there. So much love at home, and take care.
Thanks.